Following story is a translated and adapted conversation, recounting supernatural experiences from around the world. This content is intended for entertainment purposes only. Listen with an open mind and enjoy the thrill of the unknown. The content in this video is purely for entertainment. Viewer discretion is advised. If you are easily frightened, be prepared some stories might just send chills down your spine. If you're ready, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and immerse yourself in the world of the unexplained.
The dancer at the shrine of the Lord Father, in Thailand's central plains, where the Chao Phraya River weaves through flatlands of rice and ruin, lies a small village called Ban Klong Yai. Amid its dusty paths and wooden homes stands an ancient shriner, weathered teak structure adorned with faded red cloth and garlands of marigolds. Dedicated to Chow Pho Khao Tok, the Lord Father of the Hill. For generations, villagers have come to this spirit house to beg favors, wealth, health, love, leaving offerings of rice, incense, and pig heads in return. The Lord Father is said to be generous but unforgiving. Those who break their promises to him pay a price few can fathom. One such tale haunts the shrine. The story of Nang Sai, a dancer whose ambition led her to glory and doom. Decades ago, in the 1980s, Sai was a struggling Nartaki in a local Lakon troupe, her beauty overshadowed by her rivals. Desperate to become the lead actress, she knelt before the shrine one stormy night, vowing to dedicate her first performance to Chow Pho Khao Tok, if he granted her wish. Her prayer was answered. She rose to fame, her name whispered in awe across the province. But success bred arrogance. Sai forgot her vow, offering nothing to the shrine, and soon after, she vanished. Some say she fell ill and died alone. Others claim the Lord Father's wrath claimed her, cursing her spirit to dance eternally in penance. Now, on moonless nights, villagers hear the faint clatter of Qing cymbals near the shrine, and a figure in a dancer's garb sways in the shadows, her pleas for help a chilling echo in the dark. It was March 20th, 2025, when Ak, a 29-year-old engineer from Bangkok, returned to Ban Klong Ya. He'd grown up in the village, a wiry boy with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, always scoffing at the old folks' superstitions. Ak had left a decade ago for university, trading muddy fields for concrete towers, and now worked designing bridges, solid things, grounded in math, not myths. But his mother's illness had dragged him back. She lay frail in their old house, her coughs rattling through the walls, and ACC felt a duty he couldn't shake. The village hadn't changed much, still sleepy, still steeped in tales he'd dismissed as a kid. As he unpacked his suitcase, his cousin Molly, a chatty 25-year-old who sold noodles at the market, dropped by. "You should visit Chow Pho's shrine," she said, stirring a pot of curry. "Ask for Ma's health. It's been quiet there lately, too quiet." ACH snorted. "You still believe that nonsense? It's just a rotting shack." Molly's smile faded. "Laugh all you want, but Nang Sai's been seen again. Last week, Uncle Sam saw her dancing eyes empty, begging for help." Ak rolled his eyes, but Molly's words lingered. He remembered the shrine from his childhood, a looming presence at the village edge, its air thick with incense and fear. As a boy, he dared friends to sneak there at night, laughing as they ran back, spooked. Now, the memory stirred a flicker of unease he couldn't name. That evening, restless and bored, he grabbed his flashlight and a bottle of water. "I'll prove it's nothing," he told himself, half joking, half defiant. The engineer in him demanded evidence. The boy in him craved a challenge. The night was moonless, the sky a heavy shroud of clouds. Ak trudged through the village, his boots crunching on gravel, the air humid and still. Crickets chirped faintly, their song muted as he neared the shrine. It stood at the end of a dirt path, flanked by gnarled tamarind trees, their branches clawing at the dark. The structure was smaller than he remembered, barely 10 feet wide, its roof sagging, its paint peeling to reveal rot beneath. A single oil lamp flickered on the altar, casting a weak glow over offerings. Wilted flowers, a cracked bowl of rice, a pig's skull staring blankly. ACC smirked, his skepticism bolstered. "See, just junk," he muttered, sweeping his flashlight across the scene. But as the beam hit the shrine, a sound stopped him, soft ching-ching, like cymbals tapped in the distance. He froze, pulse quickening. Wind, he reasoned, though no breeze stirred the heavy air. The sound grew, joined by the low thrum of a taffin drum, a rhythm he recognized from temple fairs. His chest tightened, a mix of irritation and unease. "Kids playing tricks," he growled, stepping closer. The lamp flared suddenly, its flame leaping high, and Ak flinched. Shadows danced on the shrines, war-twisting, stretching, unnatural. He shook his head, forcing logic over instinct. Faulty wick, he told himself, but his hands trembled as he aimed the flashlight at the altar. There, among the offerings, lay something new. A silk ribbon, red and shimmering, like those worn by dancers. It hadn't been there a moment ago. Eek's breath caught, his engineer's mind scrambling for explanations. Someone had placed it, a prank, a coincidence. But the music swelled, a full pie-fat ensemble now, its notes sharp and insistent, pulling him forward. He stepped onto the shrine's platform, the wood creaking underfoot, and the air turned cold. His breath fogging despite the humid night. "Who's there?" he called, his voice sharper than he intended. Silence answered then, a rustle, soft and deliberate, behind the shrine. He swung the flashlight around, its beams slicing through the dark. She was there, just beyond the tamarind trees, a figure in a dancer's garb, her chador headdress glinting faintly, her fasin skirt swaying as she moved. Eek's heart thudded, awe warring with dread. She danced, her arms tracing elegant arcs, her feet tapping in time with the unseen music. "Hey," he shouted, stepping off the platform. "What are you doing out here?" She turned, and the world tilted. Her face was wrong pale as bone, her eyes hollow pits, black and endless, staring through him. Her lips parted, revealing teeth stained dark, and a low, keening wail escaped her throat. "Help me." The voice wasn't hers, came from everywhere, vibrating in his skull, clawing at his sanity. ACHC stumbled back, his flashlight slipping from his grip, plunging the scene into shadow save for the lamp's eerie glow. She glided closer, her dance unbroken, her feet hovering an inch above the ground. The ribbon from the altar now draped her neck, wet and glistening as if soaked in blood. Eek's knees buckled, terror flooding him. "This isn't real," he gasped. But the cold bit deeper, the music pounding in his ears, and her plea echoed. "Help me, release me." Ak scrambled to his feet, his mind reeling. He wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't obey, it by fear, by something stronger. The dancer circled him, her movements hypnotic, her hollow eyes locked on his. The air thickened, heavy with the scent of marigolds and rot, and visions assaulted him, sigh, kneeling at the shrine. Her whispered vow, her triumphant rise, her laughter as she ignored the Lord Father's claim. Then the end. A fever consuming her, her body twisting in agony, her soul torn from flesh by an unseen hand. She broke her promise, Ak realized, the truth sinking in like a stone. The Lord Father had cursed her, binding her to the shrine, her dance a punishment, her pleas a trap. "You see me now," she whispered, her voice a blade in his mind. "You must free me or join me." The ribbon tightened around her neck, a noose of silk, and black tears streamed from her eyes, staining her chest. Eek's defiance flared, battling his terror. "I didn't ask for this," he shouted, but she lunged, her cold fingers grazing his arm. Pain seared through him, a burning chill, and he fell, clutching the spot. The music crescendoed, a chaotic wail of gongs and pipes, and the shrine trembled, its wood groaning as if alive. Shadows stretched from the tamarind trees, hands reaching, clawing, pulling him toward her. Hours blurred or minutes. Time warped in her presence. Ak crawled backward, his body heavy, his mind fogged with despair. "I'm not part of this," he sobbed, but her gaze held him, unyielding. He saw himself in her eyes dancing beside her, his face hollowing, his soul draining into the shrine. Panic surged, a primal scream tearing from his throat. No. He lunged for the altar, hands shaking as he grabbed the lamp. The flame flared, scorching his fingers, but he hurled it at her. Fire met shadow, and she shrieked a sound like shattering glass recoiling as the blaze licked her form. The music faltered, the shadows retreating, and ACC bolted, stumbling through the trees, the path a blur of mud and fear. Her wail chased him, "Help me," piercing his ears, his heart. He didn't stop until he reached the village, collapsing at his mother's doorstep, soaked in sweat and dread. The night fell silent, the shrine's glow fading behind him, but he felt her still, her touch, her eyes, her curse. Ak told no one, not even Molly, but the marks remained faint burns on his arm, unexplainable to the village healer. His mother's health improved, a miracle he couldn't celebrate. He knew the cost. Sleep brought nightmares of dancing in darkness, of Sai's hollow gaze, her ribbon around his neck. The ching-ching haunted him, faint but persistent, a reminder of the shrine. One night, weeks later, he woke to silence, no crickets, no windand, a scent of marigolds. Outside, under the tamarind tree by his house, she stood, swaying, her plea a whisper on the breeze. Ak shut the curtains, heart pounding, but he knew. He'd seen her, and the Lord Father's curse had found a new thread to pull. The dancer in the hotel, in the heart of Bangkok, where neon lights clash with ancient alleys, stands the Siam Heritage Hotel, a relic of the city's past. Built in the 1950s as a guest house for traveling dignitaries, its teak floors and ornate chandeliers once gleamed with elegance. Now, it's a faded shadow, its walls stained by time, its corridors echoing with the hum of cheap air conditioners. Tourists flock here for its charm and low rates, but locals avoid it, whispering of a presence that lingers in its upper floors. The story centers on room 404, a corner suite with a balcony overlooking the Chao Phraya River. Decades ago, in the 1970s, a dancer named Nang Ploy lived there briefly. Ploy was a rising star in a Lacan troupe, her beauty and skill captivating audiences at the nearby National Theatre. But her ascent ended abruptly. Some say she leaped from the balcony in despair after a lover's betrayal. Others claim she was pushed, her death hushed up by the hotel's owners. Since then, guests in room 404 report strange disturbances, cymbals clashing in the night, a figure dancing in the moonlight, and eyes that burn red with unspoken rage. She's the Nang Ram, Heng Balconyther, dancer of the balcony, and her presence is a warning few heed. When Mark Evans, a 34-year-old travel blogger from Sydney, checked into the Siam Heritage Hotel, Mark was a wiry man with a scruffy beard and a restless spirit, always chasing the next story for his blog. wanderlust wraith. He thrived on the obscure haunted castles, cursed forests. Forgotten ruins and Thailand's ghost lore had lured him to Bangkok. He'd heard of the hotel from a Reddit thread. Room 404, book it if you dare. She dances at midnight. Mark smirked as he read it, skepticism his shield. Perfect clickbait, he muttered, booking the room online despite the warnings. He arrived late, jet-lagged and grumpy, the humid air clinging to his skin. The lobby was a time capsule, faded velvet chairs, a brass chandelier flickering weakly, and a receptionist who barely glanced up from her phone. Room 404, she said, handing him a heavy key, her tone flat. No refunds. Mark grinned, unfazed. Fine by me. He hauled his backpack to the creaky elevator, the ride up rattling his nerves more than he'd admit. Room 404 was small, but ornate tech paneling. A 4-poster bed with sagging curtains, and a balcony framed by peeling shutters. The air smelled of dust and old wood, tinged with something floral he couldn't place. Mark dropped his bag, set up his GoPro on a tripod. For the ghost hunt, he chuckled and collapsed onto the bed. The city hummed outside, a distant roar of tuk-tuks and riverboats, but the room felt oddly still, as if holding its breath. Mark dozed fitfully, the jet lag pulling him under, until a sharp sound jolted him awake, ching-ching, like cymbals clashing faintly. He sat up, heart thudding, and checked his phone. 2:13 a.m. The room was dark, the GoPro's red light blinking steadily, but the noise came again, louder now, from the balcony. Bloody hell, he muttered, rubbing his eyes. It sounded like a street performer, but at this hour, in a 4th-floor room. He stumbled to the window, the floor cold against his bare feet, and peered through the shutters. Moonlight bathed the balcony, silver and stark, and the city glittered beyond the river. The sound shifted ching, joined by the rhythmic clatter of chap, a Thai percussion instrument, weaving a melody both eerie and hypnotic. Mark's pulse quickened, curiosity battling unease. Probably a neighbor, he told himself, though the hotel's silence mocked that lie. He grabbed his phone, opened the camera app, and slid the balcony door ajar. The humid night rushed in, heavy with the scent of rain and lotus flowers, and the music swelled, pulling him outside. His bare feet hit the warped tick planks, and he froze. There she was, a figure in a dancer's garb, swaying in the moonlight. Her chador headdress sparkled faintly, her silk skirt rippled like water, and her arms moved with a grace that stole his breath. Mark stood transfixed, awe overtaking his skepticism. No way, he whispered, raising his phone to record. He dancer spun, her movements fluid, a perfect ram-Thai dance that seemed to defy gravity. Mark's hands shook, the phone screen blurring as he zoomed in. She was beautiful until she turned. Her face was a nightmare, pale as death, lips cracked and bloodless, eyes glowing red like embers in a dying fire. They locked onto him, piercing through the dark, and a chill stabbed his chest. Jesus, he gasped, stumbling back, the phone slipping from his grip. Her head tilted, an unnatural angle, and the music surged discordant now. A clash of gongs and pipes that rattled the balcony. Mark's knees buckled, terror flooding him. "Who are you?" he croaked, but she glided closer, her feet hovering an inch above the floor, her red eyes unblinking. The lotus scent turned, sourate, decay, river-muddened. His stomach churned. He lunged for the door, slamming it shut, and fumbled for the light switch. The room blazed with yellow light, and she was gone, the balcony empty, the music silenced. Mark sank to the floor, breath ragged, his mind scrambling. Hallucination, he panted, clutching his chest. Jet lag, stress, nothing real. But the GoPro blinked on, its lens pointed at the balcony, and a cold dread settled in his bones. He didn't dare check the footage, not yet. Sleep was impossible. Mark sat on the bed, the room's silence oppressive, every creak of the old building a jolt to his nerves. The lotus scent lingered, faint but persistent, and his skin prickled as if watched. At 3:47 a.m., the music returned, ching-ching, soft and insidious, seeping through the walls. He grabbed his flashlight, hands trembling, and checked the balcony again. Nothing, but the air grew colder, his breath fogging, and a shadow flickered in the corner of his Aja dancer's silhouette, swaying just beyond the light. "Leave me alone," he shouted, voice cracking, but the shadow vanished, only to reappear in the bathroom mirror as he passed her red eyes, staring, her face pressed against the glass. Mark yelped, dropping the flashlight, and the bulb shattered, plunging the room into dark save for the bedside lamp. The music swelled, a full pie-fat ensemble now, and the walls seemed to pulse, the chandeliers rattling overhead. He grabbed his phone, dialing the front desk, but static answered, then her voice a whisper through the speaker. "You saw me, stay with me." The line went dead, and the lamp flickered, casting her shadow across the ceiling, a twisted, elongated form, arms outstretched. Mark's bravado crumbled, replaced by raw fear. "I'm sorry," he sobbed, though he didn't know why. "I didn't mean to." The balcony door flew open, wind howling in, and she stood there again, her red eyes blazing, her dance frantic now, a plea or a threat. Mark screamed, hurling a pillow that passed through her, and bolted for the hall. The door slammed shut behind him, locking him in, and the music drowned his cries. Time warped hours, or minutes, he couldn't tell. Mark pounded the door, his fists bruising as her presence filled the room. Her cold fingers brushed his neck, and visions assaulted him ploy, laughing on stage. Her lover's hands pushing her over the rail, her body shattering on the pavement below. Betrayal had killed her, despair had bound her, and now she sought company in her endless dance. "Stay," she whispered, her voice a blade in his skull. Mark's legs gave out, his body swaying to her rhythm, his will eroding. "No, no, no," he moaned, clawing at the carpet, but her eyes held him, draining his warmth. He saw himself in her gaze, dancing beside her, his eyes reddening, his soul tethered to room 404. Panic surged, a last spark of defiance. "I won't," he roared, lunging for the GoPro. He smashed it against the bedpost, the lens cracking, and the music faltered, her form flickering. The door clicked open, and Mark stumbled into the hall, collapsing as the lights blazed on. The room fell silent, her presence retreating, but he felt her still, her touch, her eyes, her curse. Mark checked out at dawn, pale and trembling, the receptionist's stare following him. He deleted the blog post he'd planned, burned the GoPro's memory card, but the footage haunted him, her red eyes staring through every frame. Back in Sydney, sleep brought nightmares of dancing in moonlight, of lotus and blood, and a rash appeared on his neck, red lines like claw marks, fading by day, burning by night. One rainy night, he heard it ching-ching, faint and persistent, drifting through his apartment. He looked out the window, and there, in the storm, she danced, her red eyes watching. Mark shut the blinds, heart racing, but he knew. Ploy had seen him, claimed him, and the dance would never end. The dancer in the pie-fat ensemble, in Phitsanulok province, nestled along the banks of the Nan River, where ancient temples stand guard over sleepy towns. music is a lifeline to the past. The Paifat Ensemble, traditional Thai orchestra of gongs, drums, and woodwinds, carries the soul of the region, its rhythms echoing through festivals and ceremonies. In the village of Ban Mai, a small troupe has kept this art alive for generations, practicing in a weathered community hall near the river's edge. But one story lingers among the musicians, whispered only after the last note fades, the tale of a dancer who joins their late-night rehearsals, her grace unmatched, her presence fleeting. Her name was Nang Rin, an Artaki of extraordinary talent, who danced with the troupe in the early 2000s. Rin's movements were poetry, her every step a prayer to the spirits of the dance. But tragedy struck on a rain-slicked night in 2008, when a truck veered off Route 12 and crushed her car, killing her instantly. Her death left the troupe shattered, her absence a wound that never healed. Since then, on quiet nights when the river murmurs low, the musicians swear they've seen her slipping into their circle, dancing as if alive, only to vanish when the music stops. They call her Nang Ramhenkontha, dancer of the broken song, and her return is both a gift and a curse. It was March 20th, 2025, when Sam Chai, a 45-year-old Renault Ek player, called the troupe together for a late rehearsal. Sam Chai was the troupe's backboner, wiry man with calloused hands and a deep love for the Paifat's intricate melodies. He'd inherited the role from his father, carrying the weight of tradition with quiet pride. Tonight, they were preparing for the Songkran festival, a chance to perform at Wat Phra Siratana Mahothit, the grand temple in Phitsanulok City. The pressure was on, and Songchai's patience was thin. The community hall was a simple structured eek, walls faded by time, a tin roof that rattled in the wind, and a raised stage cluttered with instruments. The Kongwong Yai gongs, the Taffin drum, the Painai pipe. The troupe gathered at dusks, 6 members, all locals who'd played together for years. There was Lek, the young drummer with a quick laugh, Ye, the grizzled gong player who rarely spoke, and Fern, a soft-spoken woman who mastered the Qing cymbals. The air was humid, thick with the scent of river mud and jasmine from a nearby shrine. Somchai clapped his hands, cutting through their chatter. "No slacking tonight," he barked. "We've got 3 days to perfect this." The troupe nodded, settling into their places, and the music began a slow, mournful piece called Fleng Sibot, its notes weaving a tale of loss and longing. Samchai felt the rhythm in his bones, his mallet striking the Renault Ek with precision, but a flicker of unease stirred. The hall felt off, too quiet beyond their playing, as if the world held its breath. Hours passed, the night deepening into a starless void. The troupe pushed on, sweat beading on their brows, the music shifting to the lively Ram-Thai dance tune. It was past midnight when Lek paused, wiping his face. "Anyone else feel that?" he asked, voice low. Samchai frowned. "Feel what?" Lek hesitated. "Cold, like a draft." The others nodded, glancing around. The hall had no windows open, no fans running, yet a chill crept in, prickling their skin. Samchai shrugged it off. "Focus," he said, striking the Renault Ek to restart the piece. But as the music swelled, a shadow moved at the stage's edge, a figure, slight and graceful, stepping into their circle. She wore a dancer's garb, a golden chador headdress, a shimmering FA sign skirt, her arms adorned with bangles that glinted faintly. The troupe froze, mallets and drumsticks hovering, but she began to dance, her movements fluid, mesmerizing, perfectly synced to their tune. Samchai's breath caught awe, overtaking his confusion. She was beautiful, her steps light, her hands tracing arcs that seemed to pull the music alive. Lek's jaw dropped, Fern's eyes widened, and even Yai leaned forward, transfixed. "Who?" Songki whispered, but no one answered. The dancer spun, her skirt flaring, and the troupe played on, drawn into her spell, their instruments ringing with a clarity they'd never achieved. The piece neared its climax, the tempo quickening, the hall vibrating with sound. The dancer leapt, a vision of grace, and Samchai felt a surge of pride till she turned. Her face was a ruin, pale and gaunt, one cheek crumpled from impact, her eyes dark pools that swallowed the light. Her lips curved in a faint, sad smile, and a chill stabbed through him. "Rin," he gasped, the name slipping out unbidden. He'd known her played for her years ago, before that awful night. The music faltered, Lek dropping his sticks, Fern's Ching falling silent. The dancer paused, mid-step, and the hall plunged into stillness. Then, before their eyes, she faded, her form dissolving like mist, leaving only the echo of her bangles jingle. The troupe sat stunned, the air heavy with her absence. "What the hell was that?" Lek stammered, his voice shaking. Yai muttered a prayer, clutching his gong, while Fern hugged herself, pale and trembling. Somchai stared at the empty stage, his mind racing. "It was her," he said, voice hoarse. "Nang Rin." The others nodded, the truth settling like a stone. They'd heard the stories, her ghost joining rehearsals, vanishing at the end, but never believed them. Now, the cold lingered, the scent of lotus flowers wafting through the hall, and Somchai's pride turned to dread. They packed up in silence, hands fumbling, eyes darting to shadows. As they stepped outside, the river gleamed under a sliver of moon, its surface unnaturally still. Somchai locked the hall, his fingers unsteady, and the troupe dispersed, muttering goodbyes. But sleep eluded him that night. He lay in his small house, the Renat Eek's notes replaying in his head, her broken face burned into his vision. Why now, he wondered, a knot of guilt forming. He'd played at her funeral, promising to honor her with music, but life had dulled that vow. The next night they rehearsed again, tension thick among them. The music started tentative, shaky-and she returned. This time she appeared mid-piece, her dance more urgent, her gaze piercing Samchai's. The troupe played on, fear mingling with fascination. But when the song ended, she didn't vanish. She glided closer, her voice a whisper in their minds. "Play for me, always." The hall shook, instruments rattling, and a gust of frigid air swept through, snuffing their lanterns. Lek bolted, screaming, "She's not leaving." Fern followed, sobbing, but Samchai stayed, rooted by a mix of terror and duty. Rin's form flickered, her smile twisting into a grimace, and the music resumed and played by them, a ghostly ensemble echoing from the walls. Shadows danced, her troupe joining her faceless figures in tattered costumes, their steps a macabre mirror of hers. Samchai's heart pounded, his body trembling as Rin approached. Her cold hand brushed his cheek, and pain seared through him. Her pain, her crash, her loneliness. "I'm sorry," he choked, tears streaming. "I forgot you." The music swelled, a dirge now, and he saw himself in her eyes, playing endlessly, his soul bound to her dance. Panic surged. "No," he shouted, stumbling back, grabbing his Ranat Ek mallets. He struck the instrument, a discordant clang breaking the spell. The shadows recoiled, Rin's wail piercing the night, and the music fractured. Somchai ran, the hall trembling behind him, her voice chasing. "Play for me." He didn't stop until he reached the river, collapsing on its bank, the water lapping at his feet. The troupe never returned to the hall. Lek quit, Fern moved away, and Yai refused to speak of it. Sam Chai tried to forget, but the music followed faint ching-ching in his dreams, lotus scent in his workshop. A rash appeared on his cheek thin, lines like crash, wounds fading by day, burning by night. One evening, walking by the river, he heard it, again the pie fat, clear and mournful. Across the water, she danced, her broken face watching him. Sam Chai turned away, but the tune lingered, a promise unkept, a dancer unappeased. Rin had claimed her stage, and he'd play for her willing or not. The dancer of the old house, in Suphanburi province, where the central plains of Thailand stretch wide under a relentless sun, there's a house that no one claims. Tucked away on the outskirts of a quiet village, it's a two-story relic of weathered teak and cracked plaster. Its windows boarded shut, its roof sagging under decades of neglect. The locals call it Ban Rautha, abandoned househand. They steer clear, their voices dropping when they speak of it. Long ago, it belonged to a Nartaki named Nang Phon, a dancer whose beauty lit up the village festivals. But her story ended in blood. Her lover, consumed by jealousy, stabbed her in a fit of rage, leaving her body crumpled on the upper floor. The house was forsaken after that, her death staining its walls with whispers of the restless. 10 to 15 years ago, my family moved in fools who thought a cheap roof was worth the rumors. What we found there still haunts me, a memory I've carried like a scar. This is what happened, as I remember it, pieced together from the nights we dared to call that place home. I was just a kid, then maybe 12 or 13, when my parents decided to leave the city for Suphanburi. My father, a gruff man who fixed tractors for a living, had lost his job, and my mother, a seamstress with tired hands, saw the house as a chance to start over. It was dirt cheap, abandoned for years, and the landlord practically begged us to take it. Just needs some work, he said, avoiding our eyes. My older brother, Wit, 16 and sullen, hated the idea. It's a dump, he grumbled as we drove up, the house looming through the dust like a tired ghost. It was worse inside, dust, thick as a blanket, cobwebs draping the corners, and a musty smell that clung to everything. The stairs creaked underfoot, the upper floor a maze of shadowed rooms, and the air felt heavy, like it resented our presence. My mother lit incense that first day, muttering prayers to whatever spirits might linger, but my father laughed it off. Old houses have character, he said, hammering nails into loose boards. I wasn't so sure. The place watched us, its silence too deep, and I stuck close to Wit, who smirked but stayed quiet. The villagers didn't help. They'd stare as we hauled in furniture, whispering behind their hands. One old woman, toothless and hunched, grabbed my arm as I fetched water. That house belongs to her, she hissed. The dancer, she doesn't share. I yanked free, heart thudding, and told Wit later. He rolled his eyes. Superstitious nonsense, probably just some drunk's story. We'd been there a week when it started. Nights were hot and still, the cicadas a constant drone. But one evening, as we ate sticky rice and fish downstairs, a sound drifted from above, a faint, rhythmic ching-ching like cymbals tapped in time. My mother froze, spoon halfway to her mouth. "What's that?" she asked, voice tight. My father shrugged, chewing slowly. Wind, maybe, or rats. But the windows were shut, the air dead, and rats don't play music. Wit and I exchanged looks, unease creeping in. "I'll check," he said, grabbing a flashlight, his bravado masking the tremor in his hands. I followed, my bare feet silent on the worn floor. The stairs groaned as we climbed, each step colder than the last, and the sound grouching, joined by the mournful wail of a pine-eye, weaving a melody that tugged at my chest. We reached the landing, the upper hall a tunnel of shadows, and the music stopped, leaving a silence that pressed against my ears. "Nothing," Wit muttered, sweeping the beam across empty rooms, bare walls, cracked floors, a few broken chairs. But I felt it a weight, like eyes on my back. "Let's go," I whispered, tugging his sleeve. He nodded, pale despite himself, and we retreated, the stairs creaking louder on the way down. My parents didn't ask. Their forced smiles said they'd heard it too. Days blurred into weeks, the house settling into an uneasy routine. We fixed what we could, patched the roof, scrubbed the grime, but the upper floor stayed untouched, a line we didn't cross. Then came the night that broke us. It was late, the village asleep, when the music returned louder, insistent, a full pie fat ensemble echoing from above. I jolted awake, heart pounding, and saw Wit sitting up in our shared room downstairs, eyes wide. "You hear it?" he whispered. I nodded, fear clawing my throat. My parents stumbled in, my mother clutching a Buddha amulet, my father gripping a broom like a weapon. "Stay here," he growled, heading for the stairs, but Wit grabbed his arm. "Don't, Pa, it's not rats." The music swelled, a dance tune, now rammed high, and footsteps joined it, slow and deliberate, descending the stairs. Thud, thud, thud. My mother whimpered, pressing the amulet to her chest, and I hid behind Wit, my breath shallow. She appeared at the landing, a woman in a dancer's garb, her chador headdress glinting faintly, her silk skirt swaying with each step. Her hands dripped red, blood pooling on the stairs, stark against her pale skin. My father dropped the broom, staggering back, and Wit cursed under his breath. She moved closer, her face shadowed, and the air turned cold, the lotus scent mingling with the coppery temps of blood. "Who's there?" my mother cried, but the dancer didn't answer. Her steps a silent dance, her presence filling the room. Blood oozed from her wounds, staining her chest, and her gaze locked onto us, piercing through the dark. My mother screamed, collapsing into my father's arms, and Wit shoved me behind him, his bravado gone. "Get out," he shouted, voice cracking, but she raised a hand, blood dripping to the floor, and a voice rasped not hers, but inside us. "He took me, you took my home." Visions hit Mifan laughing with her troop, her lover's knife flashing, her body crumpling as he fled. Jealousy had killed her, abandonment had trapped her, and now we'd invaded her grave. The music surged a chaotic wail, and the house shook, doors slamming, windows rattling, shadows stretching from the walls. She glided forward, her bloody hands reaching, and I felt her touch, icy burning, pulling at my warmth. "Run!" Wit yelled, dragging me toward the door, my parents stumbling behind. We burst outside, the night air a shock after the cold within. The music chased us, her wail stayed, cutting through the dark, but we didn't stop. We piled into the truck, my father's hands shaking as he turned the key and sped away, the house shrinking in the dust. No one spoke, the silence heavy with terror, guilt, and the echo of her steps. We crashed at a relative's house miles away, sleeping in a cramped room, but the nightmare clung to us, ... The next day, my father went back with a monk to retrieve our things. The house was silent, the stairs clean, no blood, no dancer, but the air felt wrong, heavy with her presence. The monk chanted, leaving offerings of rice and incense, but he shook his head as they left. "She's still there," he said. "She won't leave." We never returned. The house sits empty still, or so the villagers say. though some claim the music plays on quiet nights, her bloody hands trailing the stairs. I'm older now, living far from Suphanburi, but I carry her with me, her face in my dreams. The ching-ching in my ears, a faint scar on my arm where she touched me. My parents aged fast after that. Wit turned quiet, and we don't talk about it, not really. But I know we took her home, and she took something from us too. In a quiet corner of southern Thailand, where the Andaman Sea whispers against jagged shores and rubber plantations stretch into the haze, lies Thungsong Witaya School, a modest high school in Nakhon Si, Thammarat province. Built decades ago, its concrete buildings have weathered monsoons and time, their paint peeling under the tropical sun. Tucked behind the main campus is a small annex, a single-story structure of faded yellow walls and a corrugated roof, once a rehearsal room for the school Esna Taki troupe. It's been locked and forgotten since the late 1990s, when Kru Noi, the beloved dance instructor, dropped dead mid-lesson from a sudden heart attack. The students called it Hong Ram Rautha, abandoned dance room, and avoided it, their whispers painting it with dread. Kru Noi had been strict but kind, her voice guiding girls through the intricate steps of Ram Thai and Lakhon. Her death left the troupe shattered, and the room was sealed, its instruments and costumes left to rot. But the stories lingered. Footsteps tapping in the dark, shadows dancing in a space with no mirrors, and a presence that resented intruders. What happened there wasn't just a tragedy, was the birth of something restless, something that refused to fade. It was a humid night in the rainy season when Nong, a 15-year-old student with a mop of black hair and a defiant streak, hatched the plan. She was a troublemaker, quick with a laugh, quicker with a challenge, and the school's ghost stories were her favorite target. Her best friend, Pri, a shy girl with glasses and a nervous habit of twisting her braid, was her usual accomplice, dragged along by Non's relentless energy. Their third companion, Toei, a lanky boy who fancied himself brave, rounded out the trio. They'd been swapping tales in the dorm after lights out, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth drifting through the open windows. The dance room's not haunted, Nun declared, her voice cutting through the whispers of their classmates. It's just old and creepy. I bet I can spend an hour in there and come out fine. Pri frowned, clutching her pillow. Don't nang, they say. Kru Noi's still there waiting. Toei smirked, leaning back on his bunk. Prove it, then. I'll go too, Pri, you in. Pri shook her head, but Non's grin sealed her fate. She's in, midnight. Meet at the back gate. Nong felt a thrill, her bravado masking a flicker of unease. She'd heard the stories Kru Noi collapsing as her girls screamed, her body cold before the ambulance arrived, but she didn't believe in ghosts. Pri's fear was real, her hands trembling as they snuck out, the dorm snores covering their escape. Toei's swagger hid a nervous twitch, his flashlight beam jittering across the wet grass. The school loomed in the dark, its edges blurred by mist, and the annex waited, a squat shadow against the night. The trio reached the dance room, its padlocked door rusted but intact. Rain pattered on the roof, a steady drum that muffled their steps. Toei jimmied the lock with a wire from his pocket, learned it from YouTube. He bragged and the chain clattered free. Nang pushed the door open, a wave of stale air rushing out dust, mold, and something sweeter like wilted flowers. Pri hesitated, her voice a whisper. We shouldn't, but Nong grabbed her wrist, pulling her inside. Don't be a baby. The room was a tomb of decay. Their flashlights swept across cracked tiles, a sagging stage, and shelves of mildewed costume silk skirts and headdresses dulled by time. A taffin drum sat in the corner, its skin torn, and a kong-wang gong leaned against the wall, its brass tarnished. The air was cold, unnaturally so, and Non's bravado wavered, a chill prickling her spine. "See, nothing," she said, forcing a laugh, but it echoed wrong, swallowed by the silence. Toei kicked a pile of fabric, dust clouding the air. "Lame, let's set a timer," and he stopped, head tilting. "You hear that?" Non frowned, straining her ears. Then it came, a faint tap, tap-tap, like bare feet moving in rhythm. Pre whimpered, clutching Non's arm. "It's her," she breathed. The sound grew, a steady beat matching an unseen tune, and Non's heart thudded, her bravado cracking. "Just echoes," she muttered, but her voice shook. The tapping circled them, now joined by a low hummer melody, faint but familiar, like the Flang Chetri crew Noi had taught. Toei swung his flashlight, its beam jittering across the walls, and froze. "There," he whispered, pointing to the far end. A shadow swayed, tall and slender, its arms arcing in a dancer's pose. Non's breath hitched, her defiance melting into dread. "That's not possible," she said, stepping closer. The wall was bare, no mirrors, no glass yet. The shadow danced, clear as day. Pre sobbed, backing toward the door. "We need to go." But Nan grabbed her, stubbornness flaring. "It's a trick, someone's messing with us." She aimed her flashlight at the shadow, and it vanished, only to reappear behind them closer now, its edges sharper. Toei cursed, his bravado gone. "Nan, this isn't funny." The tapping intensified, a staccato rhythm that shook the floor, and the air turned frigid, their breath fogging in the beams. Then they saw her not in the shadow, but in the space where a mirror should have been. A figure in a dancer's garb, charter headdress glinting, Fa Sin skirt swaying, rising from the tiles like mist. She danced, her movements hypnotic, her face hidden. Nong's knees buckled, awe and terror colliding. "Crew Noi," she whispered, the name slipping out. The dancer paused, mid-step, and turned. Her face was a nightmare pale and waxen, eyes sunken and black, lips parted in a silent gasp. Her chest bore a dark stain, as if her heart had burst, and her gaze locked onto them, unblinking, endless. Pre screamed, collapsing, and Toei dropped his flashlight, the beam spinning wildly. Nang stood rooted, her mind blank, her body trembling as the dancer glided forward, her feet tapping in time with an unseen beat. The music erupted. Full pie fat ensemble, gongs clashing, pipes wailing, filling the room with chaos. The walls pulsed, dust raining from the ceiling, and shadows multiplied, dozens of dancers, faceless and fleeting, mirroring her steps. "You came back," her voice rasped, not aloud but inside them, a cold thread weaving through their skulls. Nun's stomach churned, the sweet scent turning sour-rot blood. Decaying, she felt her weight, a pull, dragging at her soul. Visions hit them, crew, Noi shouting corrections, her girls laughing, then her clutching her chest, collapsing as they screamed. Her death had trapped her, her love for the dance twisting into a curse, and now she sought them students to join her endless rehearsal. "No." Nong shouted, shoving Pre toward the door, but the dancer lunged, her cold hand brushing Non's arm, searing it with ice. Pain jolted Nang awake, her defiance surging. "Run," she yelled, dragging Pre as Toei stumbled behind. The music chased them, a frenzied wail, and the dancer's shadow stretched clawing at the walls, the floor, the air. They reached the door, Non's shoulder slamming it open, and burst into the rain, the night a shock of warm, wet relief. The tapping faded, her presence receding, But they didn't stop racing across the campus, mud splashing their legs, until they collapsed in the dorm, soaked and shaking. Pri sobbed, curling into a ball, while Toei stared blankly, his bravado shattered. Nong clutched her arm, a burn mark forming red lines like footprints, her breath ragged. "We saw her," she whispered, terror giving way to guilt. They'd mocked her, intruded on her grave, and she'd answered. The trio never spoke of it, their pact sealed by fear, but the marks lingered, burns that faded but ached in the rain. The dance room stayed locked, the school ignoring their pleas to investigate, and the stories grew, footsteps heard, shadows seen. Nan changed after that, her defiance dulled, her nights plagued by tapping and crew noise black eyes. One stormy evening, passing the annex, she heard it again, the pie-fat, faint and mournful, calling her back. She ran, but she knew they'd danced with her, and the rhythm would never let go. In a university nestled among the misty hills of northern Thailand, likely Chiang Mai University. Though no one says it aloud, there's a building few students linger near after dark. Tucked behind the Faculty of Fine Arts, a squat concrete structure with peeling paint houses the drama department's relics. One room within, known as Hong Kep Chut, Nang Ramba, costume storage room, has been locked for years. Its door sealed with a rusted padlock and faded warning tape. Inside, shelves sag under the weight of old Nartaki costumes. Silk fascine skirts, golden chador headdresses, and bangles dulled by dust. It's a tomb of forgotten art, abandoned after a tragedy no one speaks of plainly. The story traces back to the 1990s, when Nang Ori, a talented dancer and student, ruled the university's Lacan troupe. Ori was a vision, her movements fluid, her presence commanding, but her life ended abruptly. During a late-night rehearsal, she collapsed in the storage room, clutching a costume, her heart failing under mysterious strain. Some whispered of overwork. Others hinted at darker forces, a curse tied to the costumes she adored. After her death, strange things plagued the room. Whispers in the dark, shadows moving without source, and a chill that defied the tropical heat. The university sealed it, but the whispers persist, and those who enter rarely leave unscathed. It was a foggy night in the cool season when Fateh, 20-year-old sophomore studying Thai classical dance, faced a dilemma. Fa was a slight girl with sharp eyes and a quiet determination, her long hair always tied back during practice. She wasn't the best in her troupe, her steps lacked the effortless grace of others, but she worked hard, driven by a love for the art her grandmother had taught her. Tonight, the troupe was preparing for a cultural festival, and Fa had forgotten her costume during the day's rehearsal. "I'll grab it quick," she'd told her friend Mew, a bubbly junior who'd offered to come along. "It's just the storeroom, no big deal." Mew had frowned, tugging Fa's sleeve. "Not that room. It's locked for a reason, Fa. They say Aries still in there." Fa laughed, brushing it off. "Ghost stories. Come on, I'm not a kid." She'd heard the tales everyone had, but she didn't believe them. Ghosts were for campfire scares, not real life. Still, as she left the dorm, her flashlight in hand, a flicker of unease stirred. The campus was silent, the fog thick and clinging, muffling the usual hum of cicadas. The Fine Arts building loomed ahead, its windows dark, and the annex waited like a crouched shadow. Fa reached the storage room, its door a slab of weathered wood marked with peeling tape. "Do not enter." The padlock hung loose, rusted through, and she smirked. "Some security," she muttered, pushing it aside. The door creaked open, a wave of stale air rushing out dust, mildew, and a faint floral scent like old jasmine. Her flashlight swept the room, revealing chaos. Shelves of costumes, some toppled, their silk skirts spilling onto the floor. A cracked mirror in the corner. A wooden chest smeared with grime. The air was cold, unnaturally so, and Far shivered, her bravado wavering. She stepped inside, the floor gritty under her sneakers, and aimed for a shelf near the back where her troops' costumes were stored. In and out, she whispered, her voice echoing oddly. The silence pressed against her ears, broken only by her own breathing, and she hurried, rifling through the fabric-stread silk gold trim, her hands trembling despite herself. Then it came a soft whisper, faint but clear, Far. She froze, heart lurching. Who's there? She called, spinning around, her beams slicing the dark. Nothing, just costumes, dust, shadows. Mew, if that's you, it's not funny, she snapped, though she knew Mew was back at the dawn. The whisper came again, Far, closer now, from the room's far corner. Her stomach twisted, fear clawing up her spine, but she forced it down. Imagination, she muttered, grabbing her costume of blue, fascinand, turning to leave. As Far reached the door, the whisper sharpened, Far, stay, and a shadow moved in her peripheral vision. She whipped around, flashlight trembling, and saw her. A figure in the corner, standing still, clad in an ancient costume chador headdress, glinting faintly, silk skirt draped like a shroud. Her face was obscured, her form unnaturally rigid, and Far's breath hitched, terror flooding her. Who are you? She croaked, stepping back. But the figure didn't move, just stood, watching. Then the sound began, footsteps, soft and rhythmic, tap tap tap, like a dancer's pace, circling her. Far's beam darted around, finding nothing, but the steps grew louder, joined by a faint hummer melody, Fleng Chatri, the tune Eri had loved. The air turned frigid, her breath fogging, and the figure shifted, gliding forward. Far stumbled, her back hitting a shelf, costumes tumbling around her. Leave me alone, she shouted, voice cracking, but the dancer stopped, head tilting, and raised her face to the light. Her eyes were empty black voids, no whites, no life staring through Far into her. Her skin was pale, waxen, her lips parted in a silent gasp, and her hands clutched the air, trembling. Far screamed, dropping the costume, and the lights flickered the room's old bulbs. Long dead, sparking to life, then dying again. Darkness swallowed them, her flashlight failing, and the dancer's whisper filled the void. You took my place. Far's knees buckled, her mind reeling as the footsteps resumed, circling faster. The melody swelling her, ghostly pie fat, gongs clashing, pipes wailing. The dancer loomed closer, her empty eyes unblinking, her presence a weight that crushed Far's chest. Visions assaulted her eye, twirling on stage, her laughter, then her collapse in this room. Clutching a costume, her heart bursting under a strain no one understood. Jealousy had cursed her, some said, a rival's hex woven into the silk she wore, binding her here, resenting those who danced after her. You're not me, Far sobbed, clawing at the door, but it wouldn't budge, the lock jamming shut. The dancer's hand brushed her arm icy, searing and pain jolted through her, her vision blurring. She saw herself in those empty eyes dancing endlessly, her face hollowing, her soul draining into the room. The music surged, the shelves rattling, costumes writhing like living things, and Far felt her body sway, pulled into the rhythm against her will. Terror snapped her awake. No, she screamed, slamming her shoulder against the door. It gave way, spilling her into the hall, and she ran, the whisper, stay, chasing her through the fog. The campus blurred past, her lungs burning, until she collapsed in the dawn. Mew's shocked face, the last thing she saw before darkness took her. F.A. woke days later in the infirmary, feverish and weak. Her arm marked with burn-red lines, like claw marks, unexplainable to the nurse. Mew sat by her, pale and silent, clutching her hand. "What happened?" she whispered, but Far couldn't speak, her throat raw, her mind replaying Aries' empty eyes. Doctors found no cosmolaria, they guessed, or exhaustion, but Far knew. She'd danced with her, taken her place, and the curse had followed. She quit the troupe, her love for dance soured, and avoided the annex, its shadow a threat in her nightmares. The room stayed sealed, the costumes untouched, but whispers grew, footsteps heard, a figure seen in the dark. Months later, Fa's health faltered, fevers, chills, no Karand, the burn never faded, aching on foggy nights. One evening, walking past the Fine Arts building, she heard it tap-tapped, faint and rhythmic, drifting from the annex. She froze, heart pounding, and saw her in the fogger dancer, standing still, her empty eyes watching. Far turned away, trembling, but the whisper lingered. Far Ari had claimed her, and the dance would call her back. In Nekanpatham province, where the golden stupa of Prapatham Chedi pierces the sky, the village of Banwai Phuk holds an annual temple fair at Watsai Mai. Every year, as the monsoon rains fade, the grounds come alive with lanterns, food stalls, and the rhythmic clang of Thai music. The highlight is the Ramthai performance troupe of Nartokas, dancing to honor the temple's spirits, their silk skirts swirling under flickering lights. It's a tradition older than anyone can recall, a celebration of faith and community. But there's a shadow over the fair, a tale whispered by the elders, the story of a dancer who returns uninvited. Her name was Nang Phip, a star of the troupe 2 decades ago, her grace unmatched in the village's history. In the early 2000s, during a stormy fair night, she slipped from the stage while dancing, her head striking a stone lantern. She died instantly, her blood staining the earth, and the fair ended in mourning. The troupe buried her with honors, but her spirit, they say, never left. On quiet nights, when the fair winds down and the crowds thin, she reappears, dancing alone, her form fading into the air. The villagers call her Nang Ram Heng Wat, the dancer of the temple land. Her return is both a marvel and a warning. It was a warm evening during the temple fair when Uncle Sam, a 72-year-old musician, sat by the stage, tuning his ranit eek. Sam was a fixture at Watsai, Maya, wiry man with leathery skin and eyes clouded by years. His hands still nimble on the wooden xylophone. He'd played for the fair since he was a boy, leading the Pai-Fat ensemble through decades of performances. The troupe relied on him not just for music, but for the stories he carried, tales of the temple's past that he shared with a gruff fondness. The fair was in full swing. Children darted between stalls, the air thick with the scent of grilled pork and incense, lanterns casting a golden glow over the crowd. The Nartakas were due soon, their chatter drifting from behind the stage as they adjusted headdresses and skirts. Som's fingers tapped the Renat Ek, coaxing out a soft melody, but a restlessness gnawed at him. The night felt too still, the usual breeze absent, and the temple's stupa loomed darker than usual against the sky. His nephew, Keng, a lanky 19-year-old who played the taffin drum, slumped beside him, wiping sweat from his brow. "Hot tonight, huh, uncle?" he said, grinning. Som grunted, his gaze flicking to the stage. "Too quiet. Something's off." Keng laughed, nudging him. "You and your ghost stories." Thip again, Psalm didn't smile. 20 years since she fell, she's due. Kang rolled his eyes, but Psalm's unease lingered, a cold thread weaving through the humid air. The performance began at dusk, the troupe taking the stage 5 girls in shimmering costumes, their movements sharp and graceful to the Pai Fat's rhythm. Psalm led the ensemble, his mallet striking the Renat Ek, the Qing cymbals clashing, the Pai Nai weaving a high, mournful thread. The crowd clapped, entranced, but Psalm's focus wavered. The air grew colder, his breath faintly visible, and a shadow flickered at the stage's edge too tall to still. He squinted, his old eyes straining, and saw her a 6th dancer, stepping from the wings. She wore a chador headdress dulled by time, her fasin skirt swaying as she joined the troupe. Her arms arched in perfect sync, her steps light, and Psalm's heart thudded, recognition dawning. "Thip," he whispered, his mallets faltering. Kang noticed, frowning. "What's wrong, uncle?" Psalm pointed, voice hoarse. "Her, she's not ours." The girl danced alone now, the troupe fading back, unaware of her. The crowd murmured, some clapping, others shifting uneasily. She was beautiful, her movements fluid, a vision from Psalm's youth but wrong. Her skin gleamed pale, her hair hung wetly, and her presence pulled the music, bending it to her will. Psalm played on, his hands trembling, the ensemble following her rhythm, a slow, mournful tune he hadn't called. The dance stretched on, longer than planned, the fair's noise fading to a hush. Psalm's chest tightened, dread pooling as she spun, her skirt flaring. Then she turned, and the world tilted. Her face was a ruin pale and bruised, one eye swollen shut, blood trickling from her temple where the lantern had struck. Her other eye stared, black and endless, locking onto Psalm, and a faint smile curved her cracked lips. Ken gasped, dropping his drumsticks, and the troupe stumbled, their rhythm breaking. The crowd froze, some whispering prayers, others backing away. "Thip," Psalm croaked, the name a plea, a curse. She paused, mid-step, her gaze shifting to the audience, and the music stopped silence, crashing like a wave. Then, before their eyes, she faded, her form dissolving into mist, leaving only the echo of her steps and a chill that lingered on the stage. Psalm sank back, breath ragged, his mallets clattering to the ground. Kang grabbed his arm, pale and shaking. "What was that, uncle?" The old man couldn't answer, his mind replaying her fall, her scream, the blood, the silence after. "She's back," he rasped, guilt clawing him. He'd been there that night, playing as she died, and hadn't stopped her from climbing the slick stage. The fair ended early, the crowd dispersing in whispers, the troupe shaken but silent. Psalm stayed, cleaning the instruments, his hands unsteady. Kang hovered, his bravado gone. "She's gone, right?" he asked, voice small. Psalm shook his head. "Not her. She comes every year, quiet nights like this." He'd seen her before, fleeting glimpses over 2 decades, but never so clear, never so close. The next night, the fair quieter, she returned. The stage was empty, the troupe resting, but Psalm heard it ching-ching, faint and mournful, drifting from the temple grounds. He grabbed a lantern, Kang trailing reluctantly, and followed the sound. She stood by the stone lantern that killed her, dancing alone, her bruised face glowing in the light. "Help me," her voice whispered, not aloud but in their minds, a plea that stabbed Psalm's heart. The music swelled, a ghostly ensemble, and shadows joined her faceless dancers, their steps a mirror of hers. Psalm's knees buckled, terror and sorrow colliding. "I couldn't save you," he choked, tears streaming. Her eye fixed on him, her smile twisting, and the lantern flared, casting her shadow across the stupor-huge, clawing, alive. Kang pulled Som back, his voice trembling. "We need to go," but Som resisted, duty binding him. "She's trapped," he said, her death replaying her slip, his failure to act. The music surged, the shadows closing in, and her cold hand brushed his arm, searing it with ice. Pain jolted him, visions of her fall flooding his mind, and he saw himself playing for her, forever, his soul tethered to her dance. "No," Sam shouted, shoving the lantern at her. The flame flared, her wail piercing the night, and the shadows recoiled. Kang dragged him away, the temple grounds trembling, her plea, "Help me," chasing them into the dark. They stumbled home, the fair's lights fading, her presence a weight on their backs. Sam never played at the fair again, his hands too shaky, his nights haunted by Ching Ching and Thip's bruised face. Kang left the troop, fleeing to the city, but Sam stayed, watching the temple from afar. A burn mark lingered on his arm-red lines like her wounds aching on quiet nights. Every year, when the fair falls silent, she dances alone by the lantern, her plea unanswered, her spirit bound to Wat Sai Mai. Sam knows she waits, and one day he'll join her tune. In Chiang Mai province, where the Mae Ping River winds through lush valleys and ancient teak forests, there's a bridge that locals avoid after dusk, known as Saffin, my Kautha. Old wooden bridges, a rickety span of weathered planks and sagging beams, perched over a narrow stretch of the river just outside a small village called Ban San Pastong. Built decades ago by farmers to connect their fields, it's now a relic, its wood darkened by time and rain. But it's not the creaking boards that keep people away, it's the story of Nang Lamai, the dancer who leaped from its edge. Lamai was a Nartaki in the 1980s, her grace renowned in the village's temple fairs. She danced the ram tai with a lightness that captivated all, her silk skirts swirling like petals in the wind. But her heart belonged to a man who promised her the world, a merchant from the city who swore to marry her. When he abandoned her for another, Lamai's spirit broke. On a moonless night, she climbed the bridge, her dancer's garb dripping with river mist, and threw herself into the churning waters below. Her body was never found, swallowed by the Mae Ping's depths, and since then, her presence lingers. Villagers crossing at night hear her sobs blending with faint Thai music, and some see her dancing in the dark, her wet form fading into the air. It was a humid evening in the rainy season when Phet, a 27-year-old motorcycle mechanic from Ban San Pasong, found himself facing the bridge. Phet was a practical man, broad-shouldered, with oil-stained hands and a quiet demeanor shaped by years fixing bikes in his father's shop. He didn't believe in ghosts. The village tales were just old wives' nonsense to him. But tonight, he had no choice. His grandmother, Ya Yudeng, had called from her riverside hut, her voice trembling over the crackly phone line. "I'm out of medicine," she'd said. "My chest hurts, please, Phet, bring it quick." The pharmacy was a mile away, across the bridge, and the rain had started a soft drizzle that promised to worsen. Phet cursed under his breath, grabbing his helmet and a plastic bag with Yai Deng's pills. "Should have gone earlier," he muttered, straddling his beat-up Honda Wave. The village was quiet as he rode out, its wooden houses shuttered against the night, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and jasmine. The bridge loomed ahead, its silhouette jagged against the dark sky, the river below a restless murmur. Phet slowed as he neared it, the drizzle turning his visor foggy. He'd crossed Saffin Mai Cow 1,000 times. Daylight made it a rickety nuisance. Not a haunted legend, but tonight it felt different. The planks glistened, slick and black, and the wind carried a faint sound, a sob, soft and broken, weaving through the rain. He shook his head, irritation masking a flicker of unease. Just the wind, he told himself, revving the engine. Ye needs me ghosts, can wait. The bike rattled onto the bridge, the planks groaning under its weight, and Fett gripped the handlebars tighter. The river churned below, its surface a swirl of shadows, and the drizzle thickened, stinging his face. Halfway across, the sobbing grew clearer now, a woman's cry, laced with a faint ching-ching of cymbals. He slowed, heart thudding, and squinted into the dark. "Who's there?" he called, his voice swallowed by the rain. No answer came, but the sound shifted sobs, blending with the mournful wail of a painai, a melody he'd heard at temple fairs. Fett's stomach twisted, his practicality warring with a creeping dread. "Kids messing around," he muttered, though the village slept behind him. He gunned the engine, the bike lurching forward, and the music faded as he reached the other side, the pharmacy's dim light a beacon through the storm. He grabbed the medicine, his hands unsteady, and rode back, the bridge waiting like a silent trap. This time, the sobbing was louder, the music swelling a full pie-fat ensemble, gongs clashing in the wind. Fett's pulse raced, his breath fogging the visor, and he saw a figure standing mid-bridge, swaying in the rain. She wore a dancer's garb, her cheddar headdress glinting faintly, her silk skirt clinging wetly to her legs. "What the hell?" he whispered, slowing despite himself. Fett stopped, the bike idling, and wiped his visor. She danced slow, graceful, her arms tracing arcs that defied the storm. Her form shimmered, almost translucent, and Fett's awe turned to dread as she turned. Her face was a ruined pale and bloated, eyes hollow and weeping river water. Her lips parted in a silent cry. Her skirt dripped, pooling on the planks, and her gaze locked onto him, piercing through the rain. He froze, terror clawing his throat. "No way," he gasped, the bike wobbling as he backed up. The music surged, a frantic rhythm now, and her sobs broke through. He left me, not aloud, but in his mind, a wail that shook his skull. The bridge trembled, the planks creaking, and she glided closer, her wet hands reaching, leaving trails of water and mud. Fett revved the engine, panic overriding reason, and sped past her, her fingers brushing his arm, micey, burning, wrong. He didn't stop until he reached Yai Deng's hut, tumbling off the bike, the medicine bag clutched tight. "Fett, what's wrong?" she asked, her frail voice cutting through his gasps. He couldn't answer, his arm throbbing where she'd touched him, the sobbing still echoing in his ears. Yai Deng took the pills, her eyes narrowing at his silence, but Fett brushed it off. "Just the rain," he lied, forcing a smile. He stayed until her breathing eased, the hut's warmth a frail shield against the chill in his bones. But he couldn't stay, his father expected him home. The bridge waited, a gauntlet he had to face again. The rain had worsened, a downpour now, and Fett rode slowly, dread pooling in his gut. As he approached Safan My Cow, the music returned ching-ching, painai, gongsa dirge that drowned the storm. She stood there again, mid-bridge, her dance frantic, her wet form glowing faintly in the dark. "Not again," Fett groaned, his hands shaking on the grips. He gunned the engine, aiming to barrel through, but the bike sputtered, the headlights flickering, and she appeared before him blocking the path, her hollow eyes blazing. The bridge shook, the river roaring below, and her voice pierced him. "Stay with me." Visions flooded his mind, Lamai laughing with her lover, his cold goodbye, her leap into the dark water. Her sorrow, her rage, pinned her here, and now she sought him a companion in her endless grief. Fett's chest tightened, his body swaying to her rhythm, his will slipping. "I'm sorry," he shouted, tears mixing with rain, but she reached again, her wet fingers clawing at his jacket. Terror snapped him awake. "No," Fett roared, wrenching the bike free, the tires skidding on the slick planks. Her wail chased him. "Stay," the music a cacophony that rattled his skull, but he pushed through, her touch grazing his back as he broke past. The bike lurched onto solid ground, the bridge receding, and the sounds faded, leaving only the rain's roar. He collapsed at home, soaked and trembling, his father's gruff, "Where've you been?" unanswered. Fett scrubbed his arm, the burn mark fading but aching, and sank into bed, the sobbing a faint echo in his dreams. Fett avoided the bridge after that, taking the long road even in daylight, but the mark lingered a faint scar, wet to the touch on rainy days. Sleep brought nightmares of dancing in water, of LeMay's hollow eyes, her wet hands pulling him down. One stormy night, working late in the shop, he heard it ching-ching, faint and mournful, drifting from the river. He looked out, and there she was, on the distant bridge, swaying, watching. Fett turned away, heart pounding, but he knew. She'd seen him, claimed him, and the May Ping would always sing her song.